The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Z-Talk Radio, its affiliates, or sponsors.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Thanks for stopping at the Warren Exchange. I'm Al Warren. Now tonight we have clairvoyant medium and psychic artist Jackie Dennison. A lot of you will know her from the television show called Rescue Mediums. Now that's been revamped and it will be on veryparanormal.com, the new psychic horror channel being launched. We're going to talk to her about the new project right after these words.
To celebrate the Not Normal Mini Cooper, we hired an expert to tell you about Mini telepathically.
Greetings. Relax and listen to my mind. The Mini Cooper hardtop comes with 37 mpg and co-cart handling.
Wait, that's not telepathy.
Listen again. The bigger four-door Mini Countryman has seating for 5.
Okay, you're just whispering.
You're still paying me for this.
Come see the 37 mpg Mini Cooper hardtop and the bigger Mini Countryman today. Visit miniusa.com/info for MPG details.
Holy caffeine!
Introducing the Starbucks Flat White. Crafted with 2 ristretto shots. For bolder, caramelly espresso. Whole milk. Steamed to a sweet, velvety microfoam. Delicately poured. So the espresso rises to the top. The perfect union of bold and sweet. Simplicity is its own artistry.
We've gone too far this time, but I'm dancing on the Valentine. I tell you, somebody's fooling around with my chances on the danger line. I'll cross that bridge when I find it. Another day to make my stand. Oh, high time is no time for deciding if I should find a helping hand. Oh.
Oh, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
On the contrary, I'm extremely interested in what you have to say.
Welcome, and we are live, and joining us from the UK is Jackie Dennison. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very excited about tonight.
Not as excited as I am, I'll tell you. Because for me, I was down in the U.S. I'm Canadian born originally. And I was down in the U.S. going to university, and I was doing all these things. And when I'd come home to Canada for a visit, I had family, and they would turn on the TV, and your show would come on. And I just couldn't stop watching it. It was just really one of those things that caught me, and I couldn't turn it off. Because they would do these little, like, marathon sort of things, because it was always holidays when I was up. And so I'd see 12 shows in a row or something, and even the repeats. I just loved it. So, and we could never get this in the U.S.
That's great. You know, we use hypnosis in the show to make people watch it. I'm only joking.
Well, it worked. No, that's funny. No, so that's how and now that I've got 8 radio shows now going on. A lot of them I produce. I don't do the hosting, and one of these paranormal, I thought, God, I'd always wanted to get you on, and anybody with any of the Canadian paranormal shows that I'd seen, but yours really stuck out for me. So it's my pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you.
How did you? First off, how did you know that you had this ability as a psychic medium to begin with, like way before the show, and when did it start for you?
Oh, crikey. I think, well, everybody's born with the ability. Everybody can connect with spirit. We're all born with this ability. But then, we start going to school and we have to do things on a very practical level because we've got to exist. So we have to learn things that will help us in life. So the psychic ability goes on a back burner a little bit, and then it shows itself at various points. Well, with me, the first point that I can remember, I was probably about 8 years old, and I was with a friend, and I bent down. This little white dog came running towards me, and I bent down to stroke the dog, and the friend said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm stroking this dog." And she looked at me as if I'd completely lost the plot. And she said, "Oh, stop it, you're really freaking me out now," because she couldn't see it. And that was the first time when I realised that maybe all these animals that I'd been paying attention to weren't really there. So the first thing I was consciously aware of was animals, and was seeing this dog. And then for a little while it went away again, and probably about a year later I was sat waiting. My nana and my auntie lived with us, and I was waiting at the bottom of the road for my auntie to come home from work, and this chappie came past, and he asked me what I was doing. I said, "Oh, I'm just waiting for Auntie Jean to come home from work." He said, "Oh, will you just tell her that George said hello?" So I said yes, and off he walked, and my Auntie Jean arrived, and I passed the message on, and she said, "What did he look like?" And I told her, and she said, "Oh no, you couldn't have possibly have seen him. He died 2 years ago." But it was definitely that man. So that is sort of 8-9 years of age when I realised that I'd got an ability. And then, of course, you sort of push it away. And as a teenager, I went looking for spirit. I went consciously looking. I think as a teenager, you're very interested in those sorts of things. Were you interested in that sort of thing as a teenager?
I was, but for me, it was something you had to keep in the closet. It's not something you would be open to. My parents were more so religious and would have thought I was to do with the devil.
Yes, and I suppose that is the time frame as well as location, because I didn't really talk to my parents about it, and it wasn't a case of they wouldn't have been interested. It was a case of I wasn't sure if it was right or not, or if I was seeing things or hearing things properly. So for me, I didn't say very much. I didn't tell them really what I was involved in, not until much later. I'm talking of when I first had my first daughter, and she's 34 now, so started getting interested again in the sort of psychic things, and consciously again going and looking to find there's more to this world than what you can see with the eye. So, and where do we go to when we die? So I was very conscious of things like that. So I suppose I went looking then, and that's when I started talking to both my mum and dad, and found out that both my nans had psychic abilities, and of course you never talked about that sort of thing then. But one of my nans actually did a Ouija board. I was horrified to think, oh my God, she'd done a Ouija board. But my nan, she was born in 1900, so when she was in her 20s, it was all the rage in the 1920s to be doing things like that, even though it was a hush-hush thing. It was a daring thing that people did, certainly here in the UK, which is where I live and where I was brought up. So, yeah, so I suppose really, going back to your original question, and I waffle quite a lot, I do apologise, Alan, that my earliest knowledge, really, I was about 8 or 9.
Did you, and so as you progressed, did you sort of see this as something you were going to do more of a full-time or more regularly as you got older, or is it something you just kind of took for granted?
No, do you know what? I sort of drifted into it, really, and I think the spirit world have a great way of pushing us into situations. Sometimes kicking and screaming, and other times with a gentle nudge. And we don't quite know where it is we're going. I'm sorry, somebody's taking hold of my voice box at the moment. I'm just going to ask them to step back, because this is a no-no, not when I'm doing something like this. It's probably my spirit guide wanting to be heard. So I've totally lost my thread now. Completely lost my thread now.
Well, I was saying how, okay, so you kind of touched off in the age 8, 9, and then that's your teenagers and that. But in your mind, were you thinking this is something you wanted to do in your teenagers?
Yeah, no, I sort of drifted into it, really, and as spirit will maneuver us, will put us in positions where we either meet someone or something happens that makes us question things. It's like joining the dots, really, and the dots all have to be in the right order. And what happened with me was my brother and my sister-in-law, that's my brother Kevin, and he was married to Christine, who was my partner for the first 3 seasons of Rescue Mediums. They were involved in a car accident, a really, really bad car accident, and they Kevin, my brother, said that his father-in-law, Christine's dad, pulled them out of this wreckage. Now he'd been dead a long time, and Kevin described him perfectly, and he said he was absolutely convinced. Kevin broke both of his ankles in the accident, and Christine had a neck injury. Both of them ended up in hospital. And it's amazing how they didn't die in the accident. And it sort of made me think very, very much about what happens to us when we pass over. And Kevin, I believe everything my brother tells me, because he's very, very down to earth. And if he said to me, there's a pig flying in the sky over there, I would believe him, because he's very open about things, and he wouldn't mislead anybody, even though he likes to have a good laugh, but he wouldn't mislead anybody. So when he told me that his father-in-law had pulled him from the wreckage, I really then started to question. So I went to the spiritualist church, and I went with Christine. She was very interested in spiritualism and things like that. So we both, when she was obviously well enough to come out of hospital, we both went to the spiritualist church, our local spiritualist church. And whilst we were in the audience there, having a message from a medium who was on the rostrum, the medium kept eye contact with us, and at the end of the session, she came to us before we were about to leave, and she said that her spirit guide had told her that she needed to develop both Christine and myself. She needed to teach us how to connect with our own spirit guides and how to connect with the spirit world. And so it all started from there, really, and that was must be about 25 years ago now, when we started to work with the medium. And we trained with her for over a year, just learning how to connect with spirit guides, how to meditate, how to connect with our own energy as well, to know the difference. And so through her, that was the start of both of our spiritual journeys. It went on and on from there, I suppose. So that's when I really consciously started to work with spirit. But work, I mean, I've got young children. I didn't go out to work, but I was at home with the children, and then I had a part-time job, and so trying to fit everything in, but and training at the same time. We trained once a week. We used to drive 30 miles to go. I know that's not much in the States, but in England that's quite a lot. We had to drive 30 miles to go and train every Friday night, and then drive back home. Well, I did, because Christine didn't drive. So that was when the dedication started. And it was probably, I would say, about 15 years ago, when I consciously thought, you know what, I can do this. I can make a living out of this. Which sounds awful, really, because the gift that mediums have to charge for readings. A lot of people have a lot of problem with that, charging for readings and things. But it's like, if you've got a gas leak, you call in an engineer. If you've got a water leak, you call in a plumber. So if you've got problem with spirit, you call in someone who understands how the spirit world works. And so even though I charged for readings, and still do, I've never ever charged for spirit rescue work, and I don't now. I've never ever charged, and nor will I ever charge for spirit rescue work, because it's a service that somebody needs to be there. I've had a phone call from somebody tonight who's having a lot of problems with spirit in the house, and it's affecting the whole family. They're not staying in the house because of the problems that they've got. So it's all the time. All the time you get people calling here with lots of different problems.
Well, what led you to that particular specialty in it, like the rescue of spirits? Like where did that come from?
Spirit pushed us, literally. It was so bizarre how everything's happened. We were going to do an investigation at the Tower of London, purely for self-interest. The two of us were going for self-interest, and we had an article in the Psychic News, which was a local a little newspaper in England, about us going to have a look at the place, because we'd done a few little things locally. And a lady got hold of this information and called us, and she said, I really don't know what you can do to help, but we need to have someone here to try and sort out what's happening in our home. So we drove to this location, it was too far for us to go in a day. We had to have an overnight stay. And when we got to this house, we were told, actually, I'll just go and backtrack a little tiny bit. Before we went, because we always open up to our spirit guides before we go anywhere, we meditate. And our spirit guides had said that, we would come across different things. It was like premonitions, which is what we do for the show. And that's when we started to write things down, the things that the spirit guides had told us before we went there. Now, this was February, and we were told by one of our spirit guides, said to me that we would see butterflies. And I thought, that's crazy. You don't see butterflies in February. It's freezing cold. It's not going to happen. And we drove to this place, and it was right opposite. We found out it was an old rectory, this house, and it was opposite the church. So they weren't ready for us, so we'd gone into the church to have a look around the church first. And when we walked down to the altar at the bottom, there must have been about 20 or 30 butterflies flying around the altar. And this is February. It was just... And we didn't have a camera with us, so we couldn't take any photographs. So we learned a valuable lesson then. So that's the very first rescue that we went into, and we didn't know what we were going into, why even we were there. We just knew that this lady had asked us to go. She felt that we were the only people who she could trust to go there. We didn't know why we were going there. We just went. And we did that. Our very first rescue situation was in that house, and it was quite amazing. And after we'd finished the rescue and we came back the following weekend, we went to our local spiritualist church, and the medium on the rostrum came, pointed to us both, and she said, I have a gentleman here. She described the gentleman, and she said he just wants to give you a box of chocolates and say thank you. And that was someone in spirit who was connected to the house where we'd been, and he was just saying thank you for going. I mean, spirit chocolates don't taste the same at all as as buying candy out of a store, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, and so when you're doing this, what exactly? I guess for people that don't understand, so you're helping a spirit, someone that's crossed over, and they are not going to, let's say, where they should be going. I guess that's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, we call them, they're trapped for whatever reason. They don't feel that they can go over through the light. It's like, I suppose, limbo land, really. They've died, the body part has died, but the spirit, which is what makes us all individuals, it's a spirit within the personality and who we are. That spirit is what continues on. And if there has been maybe a very traumatic death, it could be that the spirit is confused by the fact that they're even, they've died. Maybe they don't realise that they've died. Maybe they just go on doing the normal things that they always used to do, but, nobody's paying them any attention. So they get confused and they get frustrated and they start to physically move things that are known. But it could be that somebody genuinely has a message that they want to pass on to someone who's still here. They don't feel they can rest until that message has been passed on. Just a real good example of that. My brother, his father-in-law, but not the father-in-law that helped them in the car accident. Christine's mother married again, and Kevin was very close to Christine's stepfather. And when he passed away in the house, and we were all there. And I went into the middle room, and Kevin was sat there looking ashen-faced, and I asked him what was wrong, and he said, I just had a telephone call. So I said, who called? And he said, Al called, and that is the name of his father-in-law. So I said, Al called? He said, yes. He said, he's just told me to take care of Beryl, and he told me where the will was. And then he said, right, I'm going now. And so we looked where Al had told Kevin the will was hidden, and it was hidden in between some records in a cupboard. And so Al was it was only hours after he passed away, but he felt as though he couldn't leave until he told Kevin to look after his wife and to where the will was, because he knew that nobody would find it where he put it. So that's another example, I suppose, of somebody hanging around. That was to get a message across. So there's a variety of reasons why why spirit don't move on straight away. And it can be centuries even. It can be somebody who perhaps passed away in the early 1800s, and something happened to them. They can't either forgive themselves or forgive someone else, or they're very attached to the house even. Maybe they want to stay in that house. They don't want anybody else to live in that house because they still think it's theirs. So there's a number of reasons why spirit are in sort of limbo land, if you like. And that's where rescue mediums come in. You're not in there to rescue the medium. You're a rescue medium who goes in to help spirit. So that's where we come in. But it helps the homeowners, you see, as well, because they need rescuing from that situation, as well as the spirit who needs rescuing. So,
has there been times or cases, we would say, that you've gone and you just haven't been able to help rescue? Like, you haven't been able to pass them over, cross them over, you've been stuck and you just couldn't help no matter what it seemed like?
We've had occasions where I've had to go back a few times to reason with spirit, to try. You've got to work through the layers, you see. There's all different layers you work. It's not like having a conversation like we're having a conversation now. You've got to work through the layers, and mostly the messages come back in. So I ask a question, and it's the first question that comes back into my head. That is the reply. So this is why sometimes, especially with rescue mediums, the show, we allow spirit to overshadow us so that they can get their story over a lot quicker, and we can try and understand, because there's two of us there. So if one of us allows themselves to be overshadowed, the other one then can ask the questions and say, look, what's going on? And then you can try and have a conversation with them in that way. But there are occasions when you have to just lay ground rules down. It depends what the circumstances are, and you've got to then rely on your spirit guides. So you draw in help, the cavalry, if you like, from the other side, to try and find out why that person's not going over, why they don't want to do that, why they're refusing to speak to you, or why they're refusing to pass on. And sometimes you just have to negotiate with them. When someone is on the earth plane, you get nice people, you get nasty people, you get stubborn people. When you go over to spirit, you don't suddenly sprout wings and become an angel. You get somebody with that similar sort of personality, and therefore you've got to reason with them. If they point blank refuse to go to the spirit world for whatever reason, then you've got to try and negotiate and put things in place so that they don't disrupt in the way that they have been. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. You can't please everybody all of the time, but we can have a damn good try.
Yeah. What do you mean exactly when you're saying like overshadowed? So if one of you is overshadowed, what's that process?
It's like I suppose other people call it being taken over, being possessed, where the person, their features may alter, so my features may change, my personality will change. If I allow somebody to overshadow me, I am feeling their feelings, not my feelings. So I might burst into tears because they're very emotional. I might be quite aggressive, quite gruff. My voice may change. I can feel, it makes you feel as though if somebody's energy was to walk into your energy, it can make you feel very small. If that person was a small person, you feel as though your frame is going smaller. Or if that person was a great big burly sort of person, you can feel your frame stretching or going taller. So you're allowing their energy into your energy so you can experience what their thoughts and feelings are, and what their physical abilities are, what their physical demeanour is, or what their character is. So including as well, if they have an illness, or a disability. So I may feel that I've got sudden sharp pains in my chest, and the pains go down the arm, and that signifies to me that person had a heart attack. So it's important when we're doing rescue work to get as much information as possible so that we can work through those layers that I was talking about. We can work through the layers to try and find out how we can help. It's like a doctor asking a lot of questions, I suppose, or, you know, you're going for a consultation somewhere. They ask you all these questions as, you know, to what colour you like, and where you live, what your cell phone number is, when was the last time you saw a doctor, all these different things. So we ask questions on a spiritual level that connect us so that we can get to the root of why that person is there, why that spirit is causing those problems, and what sort of help they need. So it literally is working through layers and trying to find out what the problem is, which is why it's sometimes necessary for us to allow that overshadowing so we can get the bigger picture in a very short space of time.
While you're overshadowing, is there ever times when you don't want them inside of you and that you'd rather have them out? And is there times that you'd prefer to get them out or worry that they will hang in longer than you want?
Oh, they're never going to hang in longer than I want. That's not going to happen. You know, this is where it's so important to work with your spirit guides, because I have two really strong ones that I work with on rescue work, and there is no way that they allow it to happen, and there's no way they would allow them to always stay welcome. This is why it's so important that people learn how dangerous this can be. You need to be in control at all times. So even though on the show sometimes it looks as though either myself or Alison are not in control because of this overshadowing, we're very much in control. We work as a team, and our spirit guides work as a team with us. So we control the whole thing. We allow it to happen. That's one of the problems with people who play with Ouija boards, because you're opening a portal, you're opening a doorway that you have no control over unless you're a medium or a psychic who knows how to close the portal that is opened. Then after you've finished using the Ouija board, then all sorts of things can happen, and we have a lot of rescue situations where that has happened, and the individual has no control, so that spirit may overshadow them, and they've no control over how long it stays with them. And we've had that happen. We've had it happen on a couple of times on the show as well. We had one spirit attachment that we had to use a specific means of literally pulling that spirit off the person that was having the problems. And that was on the show. That was all to do with the show. In fact, the young lady who that happened to, her father filmed her being possessed, and we didn't see that possession at all. Because we never know where we're going with the show. We never know where we're going to go, which is why we do the premonitions. We don't want to know in advance. We'd rather not know, and then we don't have any preconceived ideas. And so we didn't know about that film footage until after we saw all the show put together, and we watched it like anybody else would on the TV. And so then we saw what had happened to her, and it was quite frightening. It would be very scary for that family to have witnessed their daughter being overshadowed in that way. And we literally had to get that spirit who was attached himself to her away from her in order to try and find out why he was there.
So now, do you suggest to people not to use a Ouija board?
I've always said that they are very dangerous things. You know, if they're used in a controlled way, not as a party game, then they can have some benefits. They're another way that you can speak with spirit, communicate with spirit, but they have to be used in a very controlled way by someone who knows what they're doing. So it's not just a case of getting a board out and getting the glasses out and the letters out, and then putting it away when you're finished, and that's it. Because the intent with which it is used is to communicate with spirit. So what happens is everybody shines a light out from our crown chakra, which is on the top of our head, and the psychic eye, which is in the middle of your forehead. Those lights, when you have intent, come on. It's like walking down a dark street and not knowing where you're going, and somebody has a light on. You go and knock on their door and say, excuse me, I'm a little bit lost. I need to find my way around. Can you help me? So when you're using a Ouija board, you can imagine a group of people all with those lights on. They're going to attract spirit. And that can be really lovely spirit that you want to talk to, but it can also attract those from the lower planes of existence who are just out for mischief making. And so it opens a doorway, opens a portal, and if you don't close it and get rid of all of those spirits that are in the room, and make sure it's like at the end of a party, nice to see you all, but go home to your own home and let's shut the door on you. If you don't do that, then you're left with them there, and it can cause all sorts of problems. So I wouldn't personally recommend a Ouija board, but if people do use them, use them sensibly and make sure you know how to close the portals down at the end of the session.
So now you were mentioning your spirit guides. Now it sounds like you have 2 spirit guides. And so when did you first connect with a spirit guide of yours? And what kind of a relationship did you have with them? Like, are they a person that were in a past life with you, or someone you knew in a different time? Explain that a little bit.
You know what? That's a really interesting question, because I've got 2 main guides that I work with, but I work with a lot of others as well. My main guide, his name's Jeremiah, and he's in his last incarnation he was Egyptian. He was a camel thief, of all things. Nothing grand like Cleopatra or anything like that. He that's what he did. And he did that for a number of reasons. He looked after his family, and he told me all this story. But I first met him when I was training to be a medium, and he stepped forward, and I just got on with him right from day one. His energy, he's very small in stature. He's got quite a good sense of humour, but he knows when to rein it in as well. So he knows me very well. He knows what I can accept and what I can't accept. So if he presents something to me that I'm a little bit unsure of, he'll show me in a variety of ways why it would make sense to think like that. So he really has me well sussed out. And he told me that we'd known in a past life, we'd known each other in a past life, but he only told me that about, I would say it's about 4 or 5 years ago now. And I was surprised when he told me that, because the image he showed me, and he linked me into this image, and as soon as he linked me into the image, I knew exactly who he was, because he showed me that he was a Nubian slave in that lifetime, and I was a slave girl, and we're going way back in time. I wouldn't even hazard a guess at what it was. I just know that we both were slaves at the house of a Turkish merchant in Egypt, but he wasn't Egyptian, he was Nubian. And my job was to clean all the baths out, which was a wonderful job. But I was very happy in that job. I was very contented, and he was one of my best friends there. And he took me on this little meditation to remind me of that time. And I just knew instantly that it was right. So I know I've known him in a past life, but that's the only past life that I'm aware that I knew him in. One of my other guides is Indian. He's an American Indian, and he is with me on rescue work. He doesn't say very much, and when he does speak, he's very strong. I know I can rely on him completely. He sometimes will get me to do automatic writing, so if he wants to say something to me, I sometimes have to go and get some paper and pen, and he'll make me write things down, and he makes me write really quickly so I don't have time to think, and then when I look at the piece of writing, it makes sense. It's a message from him, and it's very strong message from him. So they work in different ways. I work with a psychic artist as well. In fact, I work with a couple of different psychic artists because I use psychic art in rescue work as part of the premonitions, but I also use psychic art during a rescue as well, sometimes again to get the features of the person we're connecting with. So I use psychic art in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I work with a variety of different guides.
Yeah, I was noticing that on before you would arrive. Sometimes at a place, you would draw ahead of time. Yeah, it's part of the premonitions. You know, what we do is we ground ourselves, protect ourselves, open our chakras, connect with our spirit guides, go on a meditation, and then ask for our spirit guides to give us some information about where we're going to go to, who we're going to meet there, what the situation is, anything that will connect us with that place that we're going to. Now, I do this, and I've done this for 20 odd years, and I still do it now, whether it's for rescue mediums or whether it's private investigations. I've always done this, and I teach my students to do this as well, to write the premonitions down, because it's a link in. It shows that our spirit guides have been there already in advance and are already working with us to help to sort that situation out, and that includes psychic art. And that can be that I've drawn a picture of someone in spirit who is connecting, or even a picture of someone who's living in the house. The way Alison does her psychic art is completely different to mine. She draws situations, so she might draw things in a room and the location of things in a room. Hers are like maps, if you like. And she'll tell you herself that she can't draw. She'll say, I can't draw, but she doesn't need to draw. No, it's not. Psychic art is not about doing the most wonderful pictures. It can be, but in this case, it's trying to get a message across and trying to get it over in as many ways as you can. So the psychic art is very, very much part of the premonitions that we do. Now, you mentioned protection. What's your recommendation for protection in such cases?
I do. Do you know what? I do this daily, whether I'm working in a rescue situation, or whether I'm about to go into a reading, or I'm about to teach, or whatever I'm about to do, or even on a daily basis, maybe even when I'm not working, because grounding is very important. It connects you. It's like having a cell phone. If you don't plug it in, it's not going to charge. So you need to plug yours into the Earth's energy to give you that solid grounding, so that you can let go of any negativity through the roots in the soles of your feet, just like a tree, and then bring up a pure positive energy back up. So you're getting rid of a negative and replacing it with a positive. That helps you on a physical level. It helps you to stay very focused as well, especially in rescue situations, because you really need to have your wits about you at all times, and you don't want to get drained. And that's what happens, because spirit can drain your energy. Other people can drain your energy as well, like psychic vampires. How you might be with your best friend who you love dearly, but by the time that they've gone home, you feel totally drained from their energy, because they've plugged into your energy and taken all the lovely vibes back with them, and they've left you with all of their negativity. So it's always a good thing to ground yourself every day, and then to plug yourself into that energy, so you've got that physical strength. but then I always surround myself in a white light. I do mine like a bubble, like a soap bubble, and I walk into the soap bubble that's then filled with this beautiful light. But that's not how I teach my students. When I'm teaching my students, I always say that there's a ball of light about 6 inches above your head, and it's getting bigger and brighter and bigger and brighter, and then it's going to come down over your head, over your neck and over your shoulders, and it's going to wrap itself around your body. Now we do that very, very slowly so that they can get a feel of this white light as it totally surrounds them. So it's a bit like a glass dome. You know, if you put a glass dome over, you know, I don't know, a porcelain doll or something like that, it's a similar sort of thing that you can put over yourself. I've got a friend who visualizes he's putting a spacesuit on. He's one of the cameramen on Rescue Mediums, Mike. He visualizes putting this spacesuit on, including these great big space boots too. That's his way of protecting his energy, his aura. Another friend who has a sleeping bag, puts himself inside this sleeping bag with the zip, and he zips himself all around. So it's whatever works for you, really, but it's important because it protects your energy, your aura. You know, having just recharged your batteries, you don't want somebody draining you straight away. So it's a bit like going outside in the rain. If you don't put a coat on, you're going to get wet.
Right. So there's no religious connotations to it in general?
If you want to, you know, it's whatever works. So if somebody was very religious and they wanted to align to, I don't know, a lot of people call on the archangels, just for example, for protection. The Archangel Michael is a protector. So I know Alison works with the angels quite a lot. That's her forte with the angels. But it's whatever works for you. A lot of people wear talismans, you know, so crosses, amulets, crystals, whatever works for the individual, then use it. You know, it's the intent. But the way that I've just explained with the grounding and the protection, that helps your energy, keeps you very focused with your energy. If you want to add to that, or if you want to do something else, then, you know, it's whatever works.
And so, speaking of protection and all that, now, has there been a case where you've run across a demon, as they would call it?
You know, that's very strange you should ask that question. You know, when I said I had that phone call earlier on tonight, that's one of the problems that this family are having. They call it a demon. And we've been to situations where I would say it's been quite demonic, but again, it's how you think about things. So in every good person there is a little bit of bad, and in every bad person there's a little bit of good. So it's how you view something. This is why it's so important to work through layers. You know, what is the terminology of a demon or demonic? Is it somebody who is possessed? And then if that is the case, then I can be quite demonic quite a lot of the time, because I get possessed and taken over and overshadowed. But, you know, I allow that to happen. But I've come across some really, really nasty spirits who I would say they are, I wouldn't like to meet them in everyday life. They're nasty individuals who can be very violent and very, you know, including, like, you know, they say, oh, their eyes were red. Well, you know, if somebody is screaming and shouting and bursts blood vessels in their eyes are going to be red. So you get spirits who can take on a presence like that to frighten. And that's what it is. They'll use everything they've got to try and unnerve you, because that gives them a strength. That's when you're dealing with somebody who's not very nice at all in spirit. And so they would be very nasty, very sinister, if they can frighten you and unnerve you, they would, because they're going to feed off your energy, which is important, why you ground and protect yourself. So that's working through the layers, is trying to find out what the weak spot is, because everybody has a weak spot. It doesn't matter who they are. So you have to try and find out what that weak spot is to link into that, to start to work through the layers.
And now you guys are still making rescue medium shows.
We've not made a show since 2011. May 2011 was the last time we made any shows. However, we are going to be filming a new series, and that is we're going to start filming early next year in Canada. And they are going to be exclusively shown on a new internet channel. It's a portal for everything paranormal, psychic and spiritual. And it's been set up by the producers of Rescue Mediums, Lamport and Shepherd. It's going to be a terrific portal. Absolutely, I'm really, really excited about it. All 89 episodes of Rescue Mediums are going to be on there, and it's the only place that you're going to be able to see the new series on veryparanormal.com. So that's going to be launched later this month. So later this fall, in the fall, late fall. That's going to be off the ground. So we're looking forward to that. There's so many different things available on that as well. There's tutorials. Alison's done tutorials. I've done some. And there's other mediums as well that they've invited in to do different things. So, and the psychic groups as well, the paranormal investigators that all around the world, in America, in Canada, in the UK, I think there's some in Spain as well. They're submitting their material to veryparanormal.com to be shown on there. So there's a lot of exciting new stuff that's coming on there. So I can't wait, and I can't wait to start filming a new series of Rescue Mediums. It's going to be great fun again, getting back together with everybody. Yeah, it's a great show. And so you're going to go back to Canada to do that? I am, yes. And I've been going to Canada right the way through from 2011 because I do workshops there as well. I do with my business partner, Steve Furlong. He runs Feathers with Me, which is my business in Northwick, or our business, in our little village where we live in Cheshire in England. And so we teach all over the world. And we've been teaching in Canada. We've got a good client base in Canada because we've got the people who like the shows, people who like Rescue Mediums. So, so next year, Canada is very much on the agenda for me with filming the new episodes. And then also in April, Steve and I are going to Canada to do a series of workshops through April and May. So you could come and join us. How's that? You could have first-hand experience of what we do. I could, and I'd be thrilled to do that. That would be exciting. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, so it's been a delightful hour. Any information or anything that people need to get a hold of you, or anything they want to pass on, what's the best way for them to do that? If anybody wants to get in touch with me, if you can always, just put Mad Woman from England. That normally gets me. But if you put, Jackie Dennison, you'll find me with that. But my business is Feathers Mediums. And if you put Jackie Dennison, Feathers Mediums, www.feathersmediums.co.uk, you'll find me there. Facebook. You can find me on Facebook as well, Jackie Dennison. And again, there's two different. I have two different things on Facebook, because I have my regular, my personal one, and then I've got a Jackie Dennison Rescue Mediums one as well. And Rescue Mediums, of course, got a fan club on Facebook, which it's always nice to hear from fans of the show. Oh yeah, I bet. Well. Thank you very much for taking this time. It's been it's really interesting, and you're great to talk to. Thank you for inviting me.
The mission has been completed.
The end! By George, he's got it! It is the end! I'll see you.
This has been a production of the Z-Talk Radio Network.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.